Hello and welcome. My name is Julie and this is Stamp with Julie Baum. This is another episode of Simply Saturday, and I am going to take this time to show you a card that is fast and easy to make. So let's get started. I am making a card today that I feel like is perfectly appropriate for fall, even though it's not really like we think typically of autumn leaves or acorns or, things that say blessings or Thanksgiving. I'm just kind of talking about the feel and the colors. And so we're going to go forward with this card today. I am using a card base of wild wheat cardstock. And today's card is going to open this way. So my piece of cardstock is 4¼ inches by 11, and I have it scored and folded here in the middle. That's at the 5½ inch mark. Now I have a piece of basic white cardstock. This is going to go on the inside. If you use Julie's layering templates, this is a layering template number 2. Then you're also going to need a piece of Crumb Cake cardstock. This is also Julie's layering template number 2. And then my piece of designer series paper, and this is from Wildly Flowering. This is a template number 3. The measurements for those, template number 2 is 4 inches by 5¼ and template number 3 is 3¾ by 5 inches. All right, so those are the large pieces. Then I went ahead and pulled out Stylish Shapes dies, and I'm using 2 squares from those dies. So I went ahead and cut out a larger square out of Mossy Meadow and a smaller square from Basic White. All right, let's do a little bit of creating. The first thing I'm going to do is take my multi-purpose glue and attach my designer series paper to that piece of Crumb Cake. That is just creating an extra layer on the front of the card, and I really like how subtle the Crumb Cake looks against the wild wheat, but there's enough of a color difference there that it does stand out. So I'm going to show you that. Let me get this glued on, and then we'll lay it on top of the wild wheat cardstock. This print of this paper is pretty much whichever way you want it. As I'm looking at it right this second, it kind of looks like this piece should go this way. It's really not very directional, but I'm going to use it this way. Now you can see what that looks like against the wild wheat, and that looks really good. All right. As I was pulling the pieces for this card to show you, I also wanted to show it to you in a second variety of colors. And so still the same feel, still the same designer series paper, but I will show you that one in just a moment. Okay, so that's the front of the card. Again, you can see just our little extra layer there of Crumb Cake. Looks very nice. Okay, for that inside piece, we're going to want to do just a little bit of stamping on this. And so I'm actually going to pick up the pink color in the paper and use Moody Mauve to do my stamping on the inside. I am using the stamp set called Wildflower Designs, which coordinates beautifully with this designer series paper. And I'm using this flower here. So taking that stamp, I'm going to ink it up on my Moody Mauve and stamp it once here in the corner, kind of up a little higher. And then without re-inking, and I am going to stick a piece of scratch paper under here, I'm going to stamp a second time, slightly off of my paper, giving me the lighter color of Moody Mauve, like so. This piece can now go on the inside of the card. And then we'll go back to our die cut squares. Okay, that can get centered and left in place. Okay, so I'm going to stamp my words on the white square, and I'm going to turn it in the direction so it's kind of like a diamond shape instead of using it as a square. And I will use the thank you stamp from that Wildflower Designs stamp set. And I think, yes, I think I'm going to use Early Espresso, which is another one of the colors that's represented in the paper. And I haven't used this ink pad in a little while. Let me reach for that scrap paper that I had a moment ago. I just want to test it, see what condition my ink pad is in. You know, sometimes it needs to be re-inked, or it's inkier on one side than the other. So I'm just testing it because I would rather find out now while I'm practicing than once I go ahead and stamp on that square that's going to go on the card. So it's working out just fine. So I'm going to just kind of eyeball this, and I'm looking at my diamond shape. I'm going to go across the middle, so corner to corner with my thank you. And I know from using this stamp a couple times before that if you wiggle it at all, you're going to pick up ink down here on the bottom. You can see that when I inked my stamp, I did pick up ink, but I was extra careful to press straight down and not rock my stamp, so I did not get any extra ink on there, which I'm very happy about at this point. Okay, let's set that aside and go back to that flower stamp, and I will ink it again with Moody Mauve, as I did for the inside of the card. I'm going to stamp it off onto that scratch paper. That scratch paper has come in handy, hasn't it? Okay, I'm going to stamp that off and then onto my white square just below the words, so it's hanging off the bottom of the square in the diamond shape position, like so. I like how that looks. Okay, I think we're done with this. I can toss it and glue this stamped piece onto my green square, my Mossy Meadow, and keeping that in the diamond shape. Like so. All right, I'm going to flip it over and press it. I don't want to take a chance of maybe smearing that ink if it hasn't quite dried. There we go. Okay, this is going to go onto the front of the card. It's super fast, as I said it would be, and easy, but it makes a really lovely look. All right, let's glue that on, and then we'll just do our little embellishing. If you're copying this card design, of course, you could play with the placement of this. I like it right up here in the top left, like so. Okay, now I'm going to do a little treatment with my trim that you've seen me do a bunch of times. I call it my shabby chic knot. So I have 3 pieces of trim. This is actually a Crumb Cake ribbon that is long since retired. This is some copper trim, also retired, and then just some white twine. So when I'm going for the embellishing part, I'm reaching for gems or sequins or ribbon or other kinds of trim, and often I have spools or packages of things that are retired. So it's fun to just look for what color you need and grab what you have. So I'm going to hold these all together at the same time and make a knot. When I'm doing my little shabby chic knot, I like to use different textures or widths of my trim. So this is nice because I've got this looks like about a 3/8 width, and then I've got a little eighth of an inch. That copper trim is an 1/8 of an inch, and of course the twine is really narrow. But it gives you a nice little sample of all your little trims. Okay, I'm going to use my paper snips and snip a little bit of each side off. And I can always trim that up a little bit more if I need to, but let's go ahead and get it onto the card. And I'm just going to place it right like that. This side needs to be trimmed a little bit, and then we're going to stick it on with a glue dot or two. Let me go ahead and trim this one more time. That looks about even. All right, I like the little shimmer in that copper trim. It looks nice. Okay, here are my glue dots. And this is a pretty nice size knot here. And so I'm going to actually put 2 glue dots on the back of this knot. And I'll do this method where I just use the knot itself to pick up the first one right off the roll. And then I'm going to get a second one. Let me peel my backing down a little bit. It'll be easier. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to get a second one kind of on this side of that knot. Now I've got some really nice sticky parts right there on the back of that and can get it in place onto my card. And there we have it. I like how this just looks a little bit whimsical, the way it just kind of sticks out like that. And there we have our card for today. Let me show you the similar card with just a few things changed up. So I did the same wild wheat cardstock base. Then instead, I used a layer of Moody Mauve, really picking up the pink in the flowers. This time I used an early espresso piece of cardstock for that square. And I used the linen thread, or the linen thread doubled for my bow. So you can see it's very similar and yet has its own little attributes. And there you have it. Thank you so much for watching the card today. I am going to put some information for you in the description box below this video. I also will put a few helpful and interesting tidbits in there as well. You'll find the dimensions of the pieces that I used, so in case you didn't catch it, or you can always rewatch the video and pause it as you go. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.